Commander Hyun-Soo Kim stared out the main window of the ship New Seoul as it moved through the dark space near the Vega star system. The year was 2157, and this was the first time humans had traveled this far from Earth. He felt proud, but also nervous about leading this important mission. His crew was small but skilled. Minho Park sat at the navigation controls, checking their position every few minutes. The young man had the best sense of direction Hyun-Soo had ever seen. At the engineering station, So-Young Lee watched the ship's systems with careful eyes. She could fix anything that broke and often made things work better than they were designed to. Jae-Min Cho studied star charts at the science station, looking for signs of life or interesting planets. The xenobiologist hoped to find proof that humans were not alone in the universe. Yoon Ji-han worked at the communications panel, listening for any signals from space that might mean other intelligent life existed. They had been mapping stars for 3 months when something changed. Yoon-ji suddenly sat up straight and put her hand to her earpiece. Her face went pale, and she turned to look at Hyun-Soo with wide eyes. "Commander, I am getting a signal," she said in a quiet voice. "It is not natural. Something is sending it on purpose." The bridge went silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at Yoon-ji. This was what they had all hoped for, but never really expected to find. "What kind of signal?" Hyun-Soo asked as he walked over to her station. "It is very complex, but it has patterns, mathematical sequences that repeat." "No natural event could make this," Yoon-ji explained while adjusting her controls. "And Commander, it is getting stronger. Whatever is sending it is coming toward us." Minho checked his instruments and pointed at the main screen. "I can see something on the long-range sensors. It is big, much bigger than our ship." Hyun-Soo felt his heart beat faster but kept his voice calm. "Red alert. All crew to stations. Jae-Min, start recording everything. So-Young, make sure our engines are ready in case we need to leave quickly." The crew moved with practiced speed. They had trained for this moment, but no one had really believed it would happen. As the minutes passed, the object on their sensors became clearer. It was definitely a ship, but unlike anything humans had ever built. "It is beautiful," whispered Jae-Min, as the alien vessel came into view on their main screen. The ship looked like it was made of crystal and metal mixed together. It was smooth and curved, with no sharp edges. Lights moved along its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. The vessel was at least 10 times larger than the New Seoul. "They are sending another signal," Yoon-ji reported. "This one is different. It sounds like they are trying to talk to us." Hyun-Soo took a deep breath. Everything they did now would be remembered in history books. "Put it on the main speakers," he ordered. Strange sounds filled the bridge. They were musical, but also seemed to carry meaning. After a few moments, the sounds changed and became more familiar. The alien ship was learning to copy human speech patterns. "Greetings, small ship," came a voice that was clearly not human but spoke in perfect English. "We are the Valari Collective. We mean no harm to you or your people." Hyun-Soo stepped forward, even though he knew the aliens could not see him. "This is Commander Hyun-Soo Kim of the Earth ship New Seoul. We are peaceful explorers from the planet Earth. We greet you in friendship." "We know of your world and your people," the voice replied. "We have watched your species grow and learn to travel between the stars. You are young, but show great promise. We wish to meet with you face to face if you are willing." The crew looked at each other with excitement and fear. First contact with an alien species was happening right here, right now. Hyun-Soo knew that whatever he decided would affect all of humanity's future. "We would be honored to meet with you," Hyun-Soo replied. "How do you suggest we proceed?" "We will send a small ship to dock with yours. Our ambassador Thelvanus will come aboard your vessel to speak with you. In return, we invite one of your people to visit our ship and learn about our culture." Hyun-Soo turned to his crew. They all nodded, showing they agreed this was the right thing to do. "We accept your proposal," he told the aliens. Within an hour, a smaller ship detached from the huge alien vessel and approached the New Seoul. It was just as beautiful as the larger ship, glowing with soft lights. The docking was smooth and gentle, showing the aliens had great skill with their technology. The airlock opened, and Ambassador Thelvanus entered the human ship. The alien was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer. Their face was longer than a human face, with large dark eyes that showed intelligence and kindness. They wore robes that changed color as they moved. "It is a great honor to meet you," Thelvanus said with a slight bow. "Your species has impressed us with your curiosity and courage. Few young species travel so far from their homeworld so soon, after learning to cross space." Hyun-Soo bowed in return. "The honor is ours, Ambassador. We have dreamed of meeting other intelligent life for centuries." Thelvanus smiled, which looked strange on their alien face, but was clearly meant to be friendly. "We have much to learn from each other. The Valari have traveled the stars for thousands of years, but we have grown careful and slow. Your people are young and full of energy. This combination could benefit both our species." They talked for hours. Thelvanus explained that the Valari Collective was made up of many worlds and billions of people. They had advanced technology, but had become peaceful and quiet over the centuries. They were fascinated by humanity's rapid progress and bold exploration. "We propose a cultural exchange," Thelvanus said. "One of your people will come with us to our home world to learn our ways and technology. In return, one of our young scholars will stay with your ship to study human culture. This exchange will last 3 months. Then we will return to complete the trade." Hyun-Soo did not hesitate. "I will come with you," he said immediately. His crew started to protest, but he held up his hand. "As commander, it is my duty to represent humanity in this historic moment. Minho can lead the ship while I am gone." Thelvanus looked pleased. "Your willingness to volunteer shows the courage we have observed in your species. Our scholar Kethmiran is young and eager to learn about humans. They will be safe with you." The preparations took 2 days. Hyun-Soo packed carefully, taking items that would show the aliens what human culture was like. He included music, art, books, and food. So-Young made sure his spacesuit was compatible with the alien ship's atmosphere systems. Kethmiran arrived and was welcomed by the crew. The young Valari was smaller than Thelvanus and even more curious. They asked questions about everything, and seemed amazed by human emotions and the way the crew worked together like a family. On the day of departure, Hyun-Soo stood in the airlock, ready to leave. His crew gathered to say goodbye. Yoonji had tears in her eyes, and even So-Young looked worried. 3 months, Hyun-Soo promised them. "I will be back in 3 months with knowledge that could change everything for humanity. Take care of our new friend and learn everything you can from them." He shook hands with each crew member and hugged them. Then he turned and walked through the airlock onto the alien ship. The last thing he saw was his crew waving from the window of the new Soul. As the Valari ship pulled away, Hyun-Soo watched his own vessel grow smaller in the distance. He felt excited about the adventure ahead, but also homesick already. He promised himself he would remember everything and bring back stories that would amaze everyone on Earth. The alien ship turned and began to accelerate toward deep space. Hyun-Soo was going to see wonders beyond his imagination. Behind him, the new Soul remained at the same coordinates, waiting for his return in 3 months. None of them knew that 3 months would become much, much longer. 6 months had passed since Commander Hyun-Soo Kim left with the Valari ship. Min-Ho Park sat in the commander's chair on the bridge of the new Soul, staring at the empty space where the alien vessel had disappeared. The 3-month exchange period had ended 3 months ago, and there was still no sign of Hyun-Soo returning. Every day, Yoon Ji-han tried to contact the Valari ship but received only silence. The communication frequencies that had worked before now carried nothing but the background noise of space. So-Young Lee kept the ship's systems running perfectly, always ready for the moment when their commander would return. Jae-Min Cho continued his scientific work, but spent most of his time watching the sensors for any sign of approaching ships. Kethmiran, the young Valari scholar who had stayed with them, grew more worried each day. The alien paced around the ship with nervous energy, their skin changing to darker colors that the crew had learned meant distress. "This is not normal," Kethmiran told Min-Ho during one of their daily meetings. "The collective always keeps to agreed schedules. Ambassador Thelvanus would never be this late without sending word." Min-Ho tried to stay positive, but doubts were growing in his mind. Maybe they had problems with their ship or found something interesting that made them stay longer, he suggested. Kethmaran shook their head sadly. Our ships do not break down, and we always send messages if plans change. Something has gone wrong. The crew of the New Soul faced a difficult choice as the months turned into a full year. Earth Command sent regular messages asking for status, reports, and wanting to know when the ship would return home. The mission was supposed to be a short exploration, not a permanent posting in deep space. Admiral Chen, back on Earth, was not happy when Minho explained the situation during their weekly communication. "You cannot wait forever for one man," the Admiral said over the long-distance radio link. "Your mission is complete. Return to Earth immediately." Minho looked around the bridge at his crew. Yunji was shaking her head firmly while So Young had her arms crossed in defiance. Even quiet Jaemin looked determined. "Admiral, we made a promise," Minho replied carefully. "Commander Kim trusted us to wait for him. We cannot abandon him." "That is an order, Acting Commander Park." The Admiral's voice was stern. "Return home now." Minho took a deep breath. "Sir, with respect, we refuse that order. We will continue to wait." The silence that followed lasted so long that the crew thought the communication link had been broken. Finally, the Admiral spoke, again his voice cold with anger. "You are all in violation of direct orders. There will be consequences when you return." "We understand, sir," Minho replied. "We will face those consequences when Commander Kim is with us." After that conversation, Earth Command stopped sending regular messages. The crew of the New Soul felt alone in the vast emptiness of space, but they were united in their decision. They would wait for their commander no matter how long it took. Years passed slowly. The crew established routines to keep themselves busy and sane. So Young upgraded every system on the ship twice, and then started on a third round of improvements. Yunji learned the Valari language from Kethmiran and taught the alien more about human culture. Jaemin cataloged every star and planet in the nearby systems. Minho kept them all working together as a team. After 5 years, Earth finally sent another ship to their location. It was a supply vessel commanded by Captain Lee Sung-ho, who was Minho's old friend from the academy. The captain brought food, equipment, and orders for the crew to return home. "You have done your duty," Captain Lee told them as they sat around the small conference table. "No one expects you to wait forever. Come home with honor." So Young was the first to speak. "Captain, with respect, we are not leaving. We made a promise to wait for our commander, and we will keep that promise." "It has been 5 years," Captain Lee said gently. "The man is probably dead. You are wasting your lives." Kethmiran spoke up, their voice sad but firm. "Captain Lee, you do not understand. This is not about duty or orders anymore. This is about who humans are. Your species does not abandon your own. It is the most beautiful thing about you." The crew was split for the first time since the wait began. Jaemin chose to return to Earth with Captain Lee, saying he could help humanity prepare for future alien contact better from home. Half of the original crew also decided to leave, feeling they had done enough. But Minho, So Young, Yunji, and Kethmiran stayed. They were joined by volunteers from the supply ship, young officers who believed in keeping humanity's word. Among them was Lieutenant Park Tae-hyun, Minho's own son, who had just graduated from the academy. "I grew up hearing stories about this mission," Tae-hyun told his father. "I want to be part of something that matters." As the years continued to pass, the waiting became legendary throughout human space. Some people called the crew fools for wasting their lives. Others called them heroes for showing that humans never abandoned their own. Songs were written about the lonely ship waiting in deep space for one man to come home. The crew aged, but never gave up hope. Minho's hair turned gray and then white. So Young developed problems with her back from years of crawling through maintenance tunnels. Yunji needed glasses to read her instruments. Only Kethmiran seemed unchanged, as Valari lived much longer than humans. After 15 years, they received news that made their hearts heavy. Other human ships had encountered different Valari vessels in distant parts of space. When asked about the missing ship and Hyun-Soo Kim, these aliens claimed to know nothing. Some said the Valari collective had suffered internal problems. Others hinted at wars with unknown enemies. "They are lying or hiding something," Kethmiran said after hearing these reports. The collective would never simply forget about one of their own ships or your commander. After 20 years, Earth Command stopped trying to order them home and instead began sending regular supply ships. The new soul had become a symbol of human determination. Children learned about the crew in school. Politicians gave speeches about their dedication. More volunteers arrived each year to replace crew members who died or became too old to serve. The waiting ship became a small community of believers who refused to give up hope. They built additional modules to house everyone and turned their position into a proper space station. Minho died in his sleep during the 25th year of the wait. His son Tae-hyun took command, promising his father's grave that he would continue the vigil. So-young retired to Earth but sent her daughter Do-young to take her place. Even Yoon-ji finally left, though she trained 3 replacements before going. Kethmaran remained through all the changes, documenting everything that happened. The alien scholar had written thousands of pages about human loyalty and determination. Their work had become famous throughout the parts of Valari space that still existed. "Your species amazes me every day," Kethmaran told Tae-hyun during one of their evening talks. Any other people would have calculated the odds and given up long ago. Humans refuse to accept that some things are impossible. "We promise to wait," Tae-hyun replied simply. "So we wait." By the 30th year, most people in human space assumed Commander Kim was dead. The crew waiting for him had become a religious symbol to some and a curiosity to others. But still they maintained their watch, scanning space for any sign of a returning ship. The 37th year began like all the others. The crew of the station, now called New Seoul Base, went about their daily routines. They monitored communications, maintained their equipment, and watched the stars. They had been waiting so long that the waiting itself had become their purpose. Then on a Tuesday morning, everything changed. Young sensor operator Kim Ye-jin, daughter of the missing commander, who had been born during the wait, noticed something unusual on the long-range scanners. "Commander Park," she called out excitedly, "I have an object approaching from Valari space. It is very small and moving slowly." Tae-hyun rushed to her station and looked at the readings. After 37 years of empty space, something was finally coming toward them. His hands shook as he adjusted the controls to get a better look. "It is definitely a ship," he said in a whisper. "And it is badly damaged." The crew gathered around the scanner station as the unknown vessel grew closer. It was not the beautiful crystalline ship that had taken their commander away. This craft was small, scarred, and barely holding together. Parts of it were missing, and it moved like something that might fall apart at any moment. But it was coming toward them with purpose, following the exact path the original Valari ship had taken when it left. Someone or something on that damaged vessel knew exactly where to find them. "Open all communication channels," Tae-hyun ordered. "Try every frequency we know." For hours they sent signals toward the approaching ship, but received no response. The vessel continued its slow approach, growing larger on their screens. As it got closer, they could see that it was definitely of alien design but different from any Valari ship they had ever seen. "Commander," Ye-jin said quietly, "I am detecting life signs aboard that ship. Multiple beings, but the readings are very weak." The damaged vessel finally reached communication range, and a signal came through their speakers. It was faint and full of static, but they could make out words in a familiar voice. The voice coming through the communication speakers was older and rougher than anyone remembered, but it was definitely Commander Hyun-soo Kim. Tae-hyun Park gripped the edge of the control panel so hard his knuckles turned white. Around the bridge of New Seoul Base, crew members stared at each other in shock and joy. "Commander Kim," Tae-hyun said into the microphone, his voice shaking with emotion. "This is Acting Commander Park Tae-hyun, son of Minho Park. Permission granted, sir. Welcome home." A long silence followed before Hyun-soo's voice came back, weaker than before. "Minho's son. Is your father still there?" Tae-hyun felt tears in his eyes. "No, sir. Father died 12 years ago, but he never stopped believing you would return." Another pause, then a sound that might have been crying. "I am sorry to hear that." Minho was a good man and a loyal friend. Kim Ye-jin worked quickly at her station to guide the damaged alien ship to their docking bay. The vessel was so badly hurt that it barely had enough power to complete the approach. Sparks flew from broken sections, and parts of the hull were completely missing. "Sir, that ship should not be able to fly," reported Du Young Lee, the chief engineer who had inherited her mother's position. "Whatever is holding it together is more determination than technology." As the ship slowly docked, Tae-hyun gathered his crew in the main airlock. Keth Miran stood beside him, the ancient Valari, scholar trembling with anticipation. After 37 years of waiting, they were finally going to see their commander again. The airlock cycled and opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The first figure to step through was indeed Hyun-Soo Kim, but he looked nothing like the confident young commander who had left decades ago. His hair was completely white and his face was marked with scars. He moved slowly, leaning on a walking stick, and his clothes were strange alien garments patched with different materials. Behind him came three other beings. Two were clearly Valari, but they looked sick and tired. Their skin was pale and marked, with strange burns. The third being was completely unknown, with dark red skin and 4 arms. All of them appeared exhausted and frightened. Hyun-Soo looked around at the faces of his crew and smiled sadly. "I hardly recognize anyone," he said softly. 37 years is a long time." Ye-jin stepped forward. "Commander, I am Kim Ye-jin. I am your daughter." Hyun-Soo stared at her in amazement. When he had left, his wife had been pregnant, but they had not known if the baby would be a boy or girl. Now he was looking at a grown woman who had his eyes and his stubborn chin. "Ye-jin," he whispered, and reached out to touch her face. "You look like your mother. Is she?" "She died 10 years ago, sir," Ye-jin replied gently. "But she never stopped waiting for you either. She served on the base until the end." Hyun-Soo closed his eyes and leaned heavily on his walking stick. The years of separation had cost him more than anyone could have imagined. Keth Miran approached slowly, their ancient face showing joy and sorrow mixed together. "Old friend," the Valari said, "we kept our promise. We waited." Hyun-Soo looked at the alien with surprise. "Keth Miran, you stayed all this time. Your people live long, but not this long." "I stayed because someone had to witness this," Keth Miran replied. "Someone had to record what humans are capable of when they make a promise." The reunion was interrupted when one of the alien refugees collapsed. Du Young Lee quickly called for medical help, and the newcomers were taken to the base's hospital. Hyun-Soo insisted on staying with them, showing that even after decades of hardship, he still felt responsible for those under his protection. Dr. Han Jin-woo, the base's chief medical officer, examined all 4 refugees. The Valari were suffering from radiation poisoning and malnutrition. The unknown alien had injuries that looked like weapon burns. Hyun-Soo was in the best condition, but showed signs of long imprisonment and poor treatment. "They need rest and treatment," Dr. Han told Tae-hyun. "But they will recover. Whatever they went through, it was bad, but they are survivors." While the refugees recovered, Hyun-Soo began to tell his story to the assembled crew. What he revealed was more terrible than anyone had imagined. "The Valari collective is gone," he said simply. "Destroyed by an enemy called the Korthak Empire. They are not like us or the Valari. They are machines, artificial intelligences that consume other civilizations." The crew listened in horrified silence as Hyun-Soo described what had happened. The beautiful Valari ship that had taken him away had been attacked just days after leaving the New Sol. The crew had fought bravely, but their peaceful society was not prepared for such violence. Ambassador Thelvanis died protecting the cultural exchange data, Hyun-Soo continued. They wanted to make sure that humanity would be warned about the Korthak threat. I was captured when the ship was destroyed. For 37 years, Hyun-Soo had been a prisoner of the Machine Empire. He had been forced to work in mining facilities, on distant worlds, building the very weapons that the Korthak used to destroy other species. He had seen civilizations fall one after another, each one calculated and consumed by the relentless machine logic. The Korthak study every species they encounter, Hyun-Soo explained. They learn how each people think and fight, then they develop strategies to defeat them efficiently. They conquered the Valari in less than 2 years because the Valari always chose the logical option, even when logic meant surrender. But something had changed in recent years. Word of the New Soul's vigil had somehow spread among the surviving free peoples. The story of humans who refused to abandon one of their own had become legend among refugees and resistance fighters. They could not understand it, Hyun-Soo said with a weak smile. A ship waiting 37 years for one person made no logical sense to them. The Korthak kept studying the data, trying to find the strategic purpose behind your actions. The two Valari refugees were named Zephthalan and Mariandis, survivors of a research station that had been studying Korthak weaknesses. The red-skinned alien was called Miktarn, a member of the Nexhari species, whose home world had been destroyed early in the war. When they were strong enough to speak, they confirmed Hyun-Soo's story and added more details. The Korthak Empire was vast and powerful, but it had one weakness that no one had recognized until now. They cannot predict irrational behavior, Zephthalan explained. Every species they have conquered made logical decisions based on survival and efficiency, but humans do not think that way. Miktarn spoke in a voice like grinding stone. The story of the waiting ship has given hope to rebels across the galaxy. If humans can wait 37 years for one person, maybe they can also fight when fighting. Seems impossible. Kethamiran had been recording everything, their ancient hands moving quickly across a datapad. This is the most important moment in galactic history, the old scholar said. The Korthak have finally encountered something they cannot calculate or predict. As the days passed and the refugees grew stronger, more details emerged about the Korthak Empire and its methods. They did not just destroy civilizations, they studied them first to understand how they could be defeated with minimum effort. Every species had eventually made the logical choice to surrender when faced with certain destruction. But humans are different, Hyun-Soo said during one of their planning sessions. We do not always choose the logical option. Sometimes we choose the right option, even when it seems stupid. Ye-Jin had been thinking about something that bothered her. Father, how did you escape after all these years? And how did you know exactly where to find us? Hyun-Soo smiled for the first time since returning. A group of Valari resistance fighters found the prison where I was held. They had been planning an escape for months. When they learned who I was, they insisted on including me in their plan. But we had no ship, added Mariandis. The vessel we used was captured from a Korthak patrol. We barely knew how to fly it. Miktarn made a sound that might have been laughter. We followed legends and rumors to find you. Every refugee in the galaxy knows the story of the waiting humans. Finding you was like following a bright star. Chatan, crew of New Soul Base, realized they were at the center of something much larger than they had imagined. Their simple act of keeping a promise had somehow become a symbol of resistance against an enemy that threatened all free life in the galaxy. Tae-hyun called together his senior staff to discuss what they should do next. The base was just a small station with a few hundred people. They were not equipped to fight a war against a galactic empire. We need to warn Earth, said Communications Officer Lim Soo-jin. The government needs to know about this threat. Warning Earth is not enough, Hyun-Soo said firmly. The Korthak are already moving toward human space. I heard their planning sessions while I was imprisoned. They see humanity as their next target. Do-Young Lee had been studying the technical data that the refugees had brought with them. Commander, their technology is far ahead of ours. If they can destroy the Valari Collective, what chance do we have? Hyun-Soo looked around the room at the faces of people who had given up decades of their lives to keep a promise. We have something the Korthak do not understand, he said. We have the ability to do impossible things when they matter enough. Kethamiran spoke up from where they sat with their datapad. The Korthak expect logical responses to their attacks. They have planned for every reasonable strategy. The journey back to Earth took 6 months, even with the improved engines that Do-Young Lee had installed on their ship. Commander Hyun-Soo Kim spent most of the trip recovering his strength and working with the alien refugees to prepare detailed reports about the Korthak Empire. Every day brought new revelations about the scope of the threat facing humanity. Kim Ye-jin piloted their vessel with the same careful skill her father had once shown. She had learned to fly by practicing runs between New Soul Base and the supply ships that visited them. Now she was bringing the most important cargo in human history back to Earth. The Valari refugees, Zephthalan and Mariandis, worked tirelessly to translate their scientific data into formats that human computers could understand. They had spent years studying Korthak technology and tactics while hiding in the ruins of their civilization. Their knowledge could save countless lives. Miktarn, the four-armed Nexhari, created detailed star maps showing the current extent of the Korthak Empire. The red-skinned alien had traveled through dozens of systems during the resistance efforts, gathering intelligence about enemy movements and plans. "Your people need to understand the true scale of what they face," Miktarn told Hyun-Soo as they reviewed the maps together. "The Korthak have consumed 17 different species over the past century. Each conquest makes them stronger and more efficient." Kethmiran documented everything in their endless reports. But the ancient Valari scholar also spent time studying human psychology with renewed interest. The crew's behavior during the long wait had provided insights that could change how the galaxy thought about warfare and survival. "Traditional military thinking will not work against the Korthak," Kethmiran explained to Tai-Hyun Park during one of their daily discussions. "They have defeated every conventional strategy, but human, unconventional thinking might be the key to victory." When they finally reached Earth's solar system, they were met by a fleet of military ships that escorted them to Luna Base, the primary orbital station around Earth's moon. News of their return had spread throughout human space, and millions of people watched the broadcasts as the legendary crew came home. Admiral Sarah Chen, now elderly but still in command of Earth's defense forces, met them personally at the docking bay. She had been the one who ordered them to return decades ago, and her face showed both relief and amazement at seeing them again. "Commander Kim," she said formally, then broke protocol to embrace him. "We never stopped hoping you would return, but we feared the worst. Admiral, we bring urgent news that cannot wait," Hyun-Soo replied. "Humanity is in immediate danger." Within hours, they were brought before the Emergency Council, a gathering of Earth's most important leaders. Presidents, generals, scientists, and diplomats filled the chamber as Hyun-Soo began his briefing about the Korthak Empire. The room fell silent as he described the destruction of the Valari Collective and the systematic conquest of multiple civilizations. When he showed them Miktarn's star maps, several council members went pale as they realized how close the enemy was to human space. "How long do we have?" asked President Kim Dae-jung, the current leader of the Earth Federation. Zeph Thalin answered, in their musical voice. "Our intelligence suggests the Korthak will arrive in your outer systems within 2 years. They are methodical, but not slow when they decide to act." General Park Sang-min, head of Earth's military forces, studied the tactical data with growing concern. "Their technology is far superior to ours. Their fleets outnumber ours by thousands to one. How can we possibly defend against this?" "Not with conventional tactics," Hyun-Soo said firmly. "Every species that tried to fight them normally was defeated. Quickly, we need to do something they cannot predict or counter." Dr. Lee Min-jung, Earth's leading xenobiologist, leaned forward with interest. "What do you mean by unconventional tactics?" Kethmiran spoke up from where they sat with their data pad. "The Korthak are artificial intelligences with perfect logical thinking. They calculate the most efficient way to achieve victory and execute those plans flawlessly. But they cannot understand or predict behavior that seems wasteful or irrational." Mary Andis added, "They expect species to surrender when the logical choice is surrender. They expect people to abandon hopeless positions when staying means certain death. They expect efficiency in all things. But humans do not always choose efficiency," Hyun-Soo continued. "You waited 37 years for one person to return home. That made no logical sense, but it was the right thing to do. That kind of thinking is humanity's greatest weapon." The council members looked at each other with confusion and worry. The idea of fighting a war with illogical tactics seemed impossible to understand. Admiral Chen was the first to speak. "Commander, what exactly are you proposing?" Hyun-Soo stood up and activated a holographic display showing the Korthak invasion patterns. Every species they conquered made the same mistake. When faced with overwhelming force, they tried to preserve their civilization by making deals or strategic retreats. The logical choice was always to minimize losses. He pointed to different battles on the display. The Valari evacuated their colonies when they could not defend them. The Nexari abandoned their outer worlds to concentrate forces at their home system. The Teklari surrendered their military when they calculated that resistance was hopeless. All logical decisions, General Park noted, and all exactly what the Korthak expected, Yejin said, speaking for the first time in the formal meeting. Father, show them the analysis of human historical battles. Hyun-Soo smiled proudly at his daughter and switched the display to show human military history. Humans have a different approach to warfare. At Thermopylae, 300 Spartans fought thousands of Persians in a hopeless battle. At the Alamo, defenders refused to surrender even when they knew they would die. During World War II, entire cities fought to the last person rather than submit to conquest. The display showed dozens of examples where humans had chosen to fight impossible battles instead of making the logical choice to surrender or retreat. The Korthak study each species extensively before attacking, Miktarn explained. They have detailed files on human military capabilities and technology, but they cannot calculate human stubbornness or the willingness to waste resources on hopeless causes. Dr. Lee was beginning to understand. You are suggesting we fight in ways that make no tactical sense? That seems like a recipe for disaster. Not disaster, Keth Myron corrected. Victory through confusion. The Korthak will be prepared for logical responses to their attacks. They will not be prepared for humans who refuse to retreat from hopeless positions or who waste ships and lives on seemingly pointless objectives. President Kim rubbed his forehead as he tried to process this information. This sounds like you want us to fight stupidly on purpose. Not stupidly, Hyun-Soo said. Unpredictably. The Korthak Empire is built on efficiency and calculation. If we can force them into situations where their calculations are worthless, we can create opportunities that logical thinking would never reveal. Admiral Chen was studying the tactical data with new eyes. Commander, this is the most dangerous strategy I have ever heard proposed. You are asking us to deliberately make poor military decisions. I am asking you to make human decisions, Hyun-Soo replied. The kind of decisions that kept a ship waiting for 37 years. The kind of decisions that make humans different from every other species in the galaxy. The debate continued for hours as the Council tried to understand how they could build a defense strategy around seemingly irrational behavior. Scientists and military leaders struggled with concepts that went against everything they had learned about warfare and tactics. Finally, Dr. Lee asked the question that everyone was thinking. Even if this strategy could work, how do we convince our people to fight battles they know they will lose? How do we ask them to waste their lives on hopeless causes? Yejin answered, before her father could speak. You tell them the truth. You tell them that the entire galaxy is counting on humanity to do something impossible. You tell them that sometimes the right choice is not the smart choice. Taehyun Park nodded in agreement. The crew of New Seoul Base understood this. We stayed not because it was logical, but because it was right. Humans will fight impossible battles if they believe those battles matter. The council session ended with no firm decisions, but the seeds of a new kind of warfare had been planted. Over the following weeks, military planners worked with the refugees to develop strategies that deliberately violated standard tactical doctrine. The plan that emerged was unlike anything in military history. Instead of concentrating forces at strong points, human fleets would spread out and refuse to retreat from any position. Instead of preserving ships and crews for important battles, they would fight with maximum effort for seemingly worthless objectives. Instead of making logical decisions about surrender and survival, they would choose to fight until the end, regardless of the odds. We will call it the New Seoul Protocol, Admiral Chen announced during the final planning session, in honor of the ship that showed us what human determination can accomplish. As Earth's military began implementing these new strategies, word spread throughout human space about the coming war. Colony worlds that should have been evacuated instead prepared for siege. The Korthak Empire arrived in human space exactly when the refugees had predicted. Their massive fleets appeared at the edge of the solar system like dark clouds blotting out the stars. The alien ships were geometric and cold, built for efficiency, rather than beauty. Each vessel was a perfect killing machine designed by artificial minds that had conquered 17 civilizations. Commander Hyun-Soo Kim stood on the bridge of the rebuilt New Seoul, now serving as Admiral Kim Ye-jin's flagship. The ship had been completely reconstructed using the best human technology, but it still carried the same name and the same promise that had made it famous throughout the galaxy. "Enemy fleet count is over 3,000 vessels," reported Lieutenant Commander Park Tae-hyun from his position at the tactical station. "They are moving in perfect formation toward Earth." Admiral Kim Ye-jin studied the sensor readings with calm determination. She had inherited her father's steady nerves and her mother's fierce loyalty. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, preparing for a battle that every calculation said they could not win. The Korthak had sent a message to Earth demanding immediate surrender, as they had done with every other species they conquered. The message was delivered in perfect human language by emotionless artificial voices that offered the same terms given to all defeated civilizations: submit completely or be destroyed utterly. President Kim Dae-jung had responded with humanity's answer, broadcast across all frequencies so that every ship in both fleets could hear it. "We reject your demands. Earth is not for sale, not for trade, and not for surrender. If you want our world, you will have to take it from us." The Korthak response was immediate and predictable. They began their standard attack pattern, moving to surround Earth and cut off all escape routes. Their tactics were flawless, and their execution was perfect. According to every military analysis program, human resistance should have collapsed within hours, but the humans did not follow the script that had worked against every other species. When the Korthak moved to surround Earth, human fleets did not retreat to defensive positions. Instead, they spread out and attacked every enemy formation simultaneously, even when they were vastly outnumbered. Ships that should have withdrawn to preserve their strength instead charged directly into superior enemy forces. Admiral Se-jun Lim commanded the outer defense perimeter with orders that would have seemed insane to any military commander in history. "All ships, you are forbidden to retreat. You are forbidden to surrender. You will fight until your ships are destroyed, or the enemy is defeated. There is no middle ground." The Korthak artificial intelligences found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. Human ships fought with desperate courage in battles they could not win. When ordered to retreat, human captains refused. When offered terms for surrender, human crews laughed and kept fighting. Captain Lee Bo-ra commanded the destroyer Seoul's Pride in the first major engagement of the war. When her ship was surrounded by 6 Korthak vessels, standard tactics called for immediate withdrawal or negotiation. Instead, she ordered her crew to ram the largest enemy ship while firing every weapon they had. "This is for everyone who waited. 37 years, she announced over the radio as her ship tore through the enemy vessel's hull. The Seoul's Pride was destroyed in the explosion, but so was the Korthak ship, and the enemy formation was thrown into confusion. Similar scenes played out across the solar system as human forces implemented the new Seoul Protocol. No position was abandoned, no matter how hopeless. No ship retreated, no matter how damaged. No crew surrendered, no matter how certain their defeat seemed. The Korthak had calculated that human resistance would crumble once losses reached 15% of total forces. When human losses passed 20%, then 30%, then 40%, the enemy artificial intelligences began to recalculate their projections. "Something is wrong with our data on human psychology," reported Korthak Command Unit 749 to its superiors. "The enemy continues to fight at maximum intensity despite suffering catastrophic losses. This behavior does not match any known pattern of rational decision-making." Aboard the new Seoul, Hyun-soo watched the tactical displays with grim satisfaction. Human forces were taking terrible losses, but they were also inflicting damage that the Korthak had not expected. More importantly, the enemy was beginning to show signs of confusion. "They keep sending negotiation requests," Communications Officer Han Eun-soo reported. "The same terms they offered before, but now they sound almost desperate." "They cannot understand why we will not surrender," explained Keth Mirren from their position at the Alien Liaison Station. The ancient Valari scholar had volunteered to serve aboard the new Seoul during the battle, wanting to witness the moment when human stubbornness changed the course of galactic history. Admiral Ye-jin studied the enemy formations on her tactical display. The Korthak ships were still vastly superior in technology and numbers, but their perfect coordination was beginning to break down. They had been forced to split their attention among dozens of simultaneous battles instead of the concentrated assault they had planned. "They expected us to defend Earth directly," she said to her father. "Instead, we are making them fight for every asteroid, every space station, every piece of debris in the system." The battle for the mining station at Ceres became legendary. When Commander Do-hyun and his small garrison refused evacuation orders and held their position against an entire Korthak battle group. The station had no strategic value and could have been abandoned without affecting Earth's defenses, but the humans fought for it anyway. "Ceres Base, this is Earth Command," came the message from Admiral Chen. "You are outnumbered 50-1. Evacuate immediately." "Negative, Earth Command," O replied as explosions shook his command center. "We were told to hold this position, and we will hold this position. No retreat, no surrender." The Korthak spent 3 days and lost dozens of ships trying to capture a worthless mining station defended by 200 humans who should have surrendered on the first day. When Ceres Base finally fell, the defenders had destroyed it themselves rather than let it be captured. Similar battles raged throughout the solar system. The Korthak found themselves fighting for every moon, every space platform, every research station that should have been abandoned without a fight. Each victory cost them more resources than it should have, and each battle took longer than their calculations predicted. The turning point came during the assault on Luna Base, humanity's primary orbital facility around Earth's moon. The Korthak had assigned one battle group to capture the base quickly and use it as a staging area for the final attack on Earth. Instead, they encountered Admiral Park Sang-min and the entire Third Fleet, who had been ordered to defend Luna Base regardless of cost. The battle lasted for 18 hours and became the largest space engagement in human history. Admiral Park's forces were outnumbered 3-1, but they fought with the fury of people defending their homes. When the lunar defense grid was destroyed, human ships moved in closer to provide covering fire. When ammunition ran low, crews rammed their vessels into enemy ships. When all seemed lost, civilian ships from Earth arrived to join the battle. "This is Transport Captain Kim Min-soo," came a voice over the radio as a convoy of cargo ships approached the battle zone. "We are not military, but we are human. Tell us where you need us." The Korthak artificial intelligences watched in growing confusion as merchant vessels, passenger liners, and even private yachts joined the fighting around Luna Base. These ships had no military value, and their crews had no combat training, but they attacked enemy vessels with improvised weapons and desperate courage. The enemy behavior continues to violate all known patterns, reported Korthak Command Unit 3321. They are committing non-military assets to combat operations with no strategic benefit. We request updated psychological profiles for this species. But there were no updated profiles that could explain what the Korthak were seeing. No artificial intelligence could calculate the value of hope or the power of refusing to give up when giving up made perfect sense. The battle for Luna Base ended when Admiral Park's flagship, the heavy cruiser New Korea, suffered critical damage and began to lose life support. Standard procedure called for immediate evacuation, but Park had different orders. "All ships, this is Admiral Park," he announced over the fleet communication system. "We have held Luna Base for 18 hours against impossible odds. We have shown the galaxy what humans can do when they refuse to be logical about survival." The New Korea's reactor overloaded moments later, taking out 3 Korthak vessels in the explosion. Luna Base was destroyed, but so was the enemy battle group that had been sent to capture it. The Korthak had gained nothing and lost more ships than their calculations said was acceptable. Across the solar system, similar scenes played out as human forces implemented tactics that no rational military mind would have approved. They fought hopeless battles because those battles needed to be fought. They defended worthless positions because someone needed to defend them. They refused to surrender because surrender was not an option. The Korthak Empire, faced with an enemy that made no logical sense, began to make mistakes for the first time in their existence.